Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, World Notice Post, covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. It's a Monday evening, and it's a Monday Edwin. Hello, Edwin. How you doing?
Mate, have you recovered? They tell me you were in the CoreLogic flight over the weekend. I don't know. Is that
No, that wasn't me. Must have been somebody else.
that was Uppercut Adams?
Could have been. No. I have a few other things on my plate at the moment. I wasn't up in Sydney at all.
Well, that's it. Look, I tell you what, having a few things on your plate. I don't know what they're smoking in Mexico, but I think could be some of the stuff that the libs and the labs are smoking here as well. But the Mexican president seems to have cited something, or he's got proof that the mythical woodland elf of the mythical woodland elf. So they're smoking something and they're not sharing the Martin. What's the go?
Yeah, but remember what they grow in Mexico, right? That probably has something to do with it, I suggest.
Yeah, well, look, I tell you, but I can tell you one thing for sure is south of the Mexican border, as I said, my cousins are coming in thick and fast, because once it's the student let's call it the student migration comes in from South America, you know what they're carrying? It's the Colombian gold.
Yeah.
How else are they going to pay the tuitions, Martin? Tell me, how else?
Good question. That's, yes. Yep. There's always a way, isn't there? There's always a way.
Look, the thing is, look, we joke about it, we jest about these sort of things, but it's reality, because we talk to our legal eagles in the criminal field and with family when as to get an insight as to what's happening in those fields, in order to have a better understanding of what's going to happen in certain markets, because the South American students will gravitate towards the eastern suburbs, because over there it seems to be the largest amount of consumption happening in the eastern suburbs and the North Shore. So you've got to understand these. Now, some people will say, "Oh, you just that's silliness, that's idle chatter," but it's not really, because of the nature of where we are with a shortage of rental properties, where we are with the low listings on numbers. You've got to take everything into consideration, because it doesn't take a lot to change the market or spook the market, as we say, either way.
No, and I think, again, Edwin, I get very frustrated when we have these high-level spooky articles in the mainstream media or on the mainstream real estate portals, plucking out figures at a macro level, which are completely meaningless, right? Because there's so much variety and diversity down at the different postcodes and different types of property level that it's really just a waste of time looking at the macro pictures. You've got to go local. You've got to actually grow granular to understand what's going on. And, to compare and contrast, I reckon there's a very different market in Blacktown at the moment relative to, say, Thurrool, where I am, right? These markets are not behaving the same. Supply, demand, price movements, property mix, they are uniquely different.
100%. And then you've got the other factors behind those, Martin. You've got the demographics. I often speak about the pain thresholds that the communities are going through. Where is the mortgage stress levels, the rental stress levels? How is this migration happening interstate, nationally, and also locally? People seem to have forgotten that Lismore, it was almost 12 months ago, and nothing's happening. They're trying to rebuild the community, and it's really, they're literally swimming upriver, if I could use that. But the thing is, but where are the people from the regions that are being affected by natural disasters? They've come to Sydney. Where are the regional areas? They've gone back to Sydney because of work. So all these things, as you say, all these micro or granular aspects of a market is going to differ vastly from the communities of the different markets, like your Thurrools, like your areas where people are watching on a weekly basis, the market continued to go backwards, which is pretty much in your area at the moment. Whereas, as you so rightly say, in the northwest region of Sydney, it's we're going to talk about a particular property that I attended an auction, and it's flabbergasting. It's absolutely, it just doesn't make mainstream sense because it's not your norm. But when you start really looking into these things, into why certain properties achieve certain values, and you start understanding how the demographics are operating, and how things other factors behind the sales affected that particular property, you begin to realise that you really got to take extra care when you're selecting a property to buy, when you're putting a property to market for sale, and also when you're selecting properties from a rental side of things as well.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed, Edwin, in my surveys is that there's quite a diversity of view amongst vendors. So there are some people who are still quite anxious to try and get shot a property because they've got a sense that in their area properties are continuing to drift down. And I'll be honest with you, when I sold my property here, properties prices were already on the slide, and they've continued to slide. So I think I probably made the right call. But there are other areas where vendors are saying, oh, no, I don't think property prices are falling. I'm going to stand out and hold strong to try and get that particular value, which was sort of where it was previously. And they might be successful, they might not be. But, it is really interesting, this psychology that's driving the market. And then you've got the same psychological issues on the buyer side, because there are some people who are still quite desperate, lack of supply, really trying to grab something and quite quickly. There are other people really quite twitchy about higher interest rates and worried about where this is all going to lead. And so you've got this diversity of psychology on the supply and on the demand side, on the buyer and on the seller side, which makes it a really complex market.
Definitely. And then you've got, as we've spoken before, and we spoke with Louis, and you've got all the actors that are involved in the whole process. And sure enough, we've got the main actors, which is the libs and the labs, throwing everything at it now because it's 27 days before the election. So let the games begin, Martin.
Absolutely.
Let the games begin. The labs will blame.
Who's going to make the biggest promises, right? Remember, folks, election promises are not worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah, but it does pull votes. That's why do they keep on using it? Why do they keep on spending millions of dollars in advertising these BS election promises? Because it does win them votes, because they also understand the psychology very well. They understand the herd mentality. They understand how people will flow. They'll understand the short-term fix to that long-term problem, which is the placebo effect of giving you a good feel, sensation of good feel. But people just got to understand the libs and the labs are the same. Are attached to the same bloody vulture. So right now we've got the labs blaming the libs because of because the labs keep saying but the lib side with the real estate industry and the construction industry, and it's not fair on the underdog, the first time buyers and all this and all that. And then you got the libs blaming the labs for the current immigration policies and making promises of 1 million homes, but yet bringing in 300,000 migrants, and then telling us that they're going to provide 5,000 homes over each year for the next 6 years or something. It all just gets. They're your promises. That it means jack nothing. But what we're doing is trying to understand what they're saying, what it really means, and how it's really going to affect the first-time buyers. Trying to assist our followers in understanding how to have a better observation and overview of the market, so that, as we say, they can make better decisions. But in the meantime, Martin, things that have been implemented, policies that have been put in place, over a year ago, they're now starting to really bite. And it's whilst everybody's distracted by the election coming up and all these look at me, look at how handsome I look with my new suit, politician, and look at how slim I look with my new girlfriend, politician, or whatever. this sort of they're all trying to persuade voters into gaining a vote on personality. Reality, is hitting home. As of the 1st of March, we've got the NCC, the National Construction Code, which has replaced the BCA, the Building Code of Australia. That comes into full swing. And guess what, Martin? Construction is going to be the cost of construction is going to be increased anywhere between 5 to 17%. I'm told, because fees are just going to continue to go through the roof based on the changes that are now going to be govern new developments, renovations, and so forth. So it's the things are just going to get more and more expensive, regardless who comes into power, because this stuff's already etched in stone, and no one can change it.
Absolutely, yeah. Higher costs for construction and for the rules and regs around construction, definitely a thing. As is, of course, massive migration and what I keep calling the quantitative people easing, right? So we just flood more people in, and that will make the economy bigger, and that means that we can perhaps avoid a recession. But of course, the consequences are more demand on rents, more issues with supply and demand on property, and complete chaos. Just to add insult to injury, we've got the basics.
That's it. The Building Sustainability Index. Watch out, folks, because if you think the NCC is going to increase the value of property, the construction of property, where developers and small-time builders are just going to basically hang up the tools, basics is just another beast on its own. And that comes into play on the 1st of October 2023. So the changes to that, where you're going to go from 5.5 efficiency levels right up to 7-point efficiency levels, and what we need to get there. When you start reading through this, and just talking to a couple of architects and a draftsperson over the weekend, just sitting down with them having a coffee, they're just pulling their hair out. It obviously there's a lot of information still being filtered through, but pretty much any development on a property above $50,000 or $40,000, if you're going to be building a pool, comes under the new basics scheme. And you could be, they at the moment they're calling a 10% increase in prices, which is a lot. When you start talking, for $450,000 for an average home to build. I mean, this is just a pretty average home, $450 at the moment. That's not including land and a lot of in landscaping. And when you start adding another 10% to that, is you've got to either start cutting down on the on amenities, or you start turning the fourth bedroom into a study nook.
Yeah, but it's going to save 150,000 tons of greenhouse gas a year, Edwin. So the trade-off's worth it. Except, of course, that individual households who want to build or buy, they're going to have to pay more. So it amazes me how all of these initiatives, right, whether it's green or whatever, it always comes back and hits ordinary households and ordinary businesses at the end of the day, because actually there is nobody else at the end of the chain, right? We are at the end of the chain. So every time somebody pulls a lever up there to improve this or change that, actually we might just well say, open your wallet, help yourself.
That's right. I tell you what one of the impacts that a lot of my colleagues, when I get around town and start talking to them in different aspects of the building industry and the real estate industry, is one thing that is very, very noticeable, and I can't wait until people start doing real studies on it, and that is the quality has absolutely gone to shit, and developers and builders cutting corners is absolutely rife. And this is where they should really put a lot more emphasis, a lot more onus on, if they're going to bring in these policies. Okay, marry that up with something that's going to, you're going to governance. controls in governance, because people find ways of cutting corners, and unfortunately, things are only going to get worse. So, from our point of view, in terms of the property values and property prices, we can see that there's going to be obviously there has been, we've noticed it for a while now, but we're going to see more or a greater shift as people become more and more aware of the increased cost in building and renovating of things that are already done. Hence the reason why even now we're seeing that well-presented properties, well-maintained properties, albeit even if they're not fully renovated, they may be in the original state, but if they've been well maintained, and you can see that, you can sense that, you can feel it, you can smell it when you walk into the property, it gives you that good ambience, and you feel like you're in a solid building. Guess what? They're going to achieve very high prices, higher than the one next door. That may be newer, may have been partly renovated, but it hasn't been well maintained. So these are the shifts and the changes that that people are going to be very, very conscious of and aware of as they move forward in property decisions.
Absolutely, Edwin. Well, we've claimed quite a few victories in terms of our projections and predictions of what's going to happen, right? We said that expect more first home buyer grants and shared equities, etc., right? And we also suggested longer term mortgages, tick, 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 and high migration, tick. But actually, we had one miss, right? Because one of the things I said was, I think it's quite likely that APRA will reduce the buffer on mortgages. In other words, when they make a serviceability assessment, it's 3% higher than the actual current mortgage rate, right? And blow me, they came out today and said, no, we're going to maintain our 3% buffer, right? So basically, we missed that one at the moment. They might change it later, but I think it's quite interesting. And David Taylor on the ABC said banking regulator APRA is keeping existing 3% serviceability buffer for the banks. Put it simply, it's not going to make it harder for people to borrow money. That's an interesting observation. What it basically means is a bit different from that. I think what it basically means is that people will still be assessed on that 3% serviceability buffer. So we're not going to see a little spike in how much money you can borrow, and of course mortgage rates are still going to go higher. So this could be quite interesting.
I'm looking to watch this space, but the fix was already in. It's been in for a while, hasn't it? So look, I don't know, Martin, but I think long gone are the days where you could really look at economic policies and factors pre-COVID. Yes, but in between, there's those years that things have just gone upside down. And inside out, upside down, and right is left is right. And like Elon Musk says, if somebody comes up to me and says, 1 + 1 = 3, I'll say, that's an interesting point of view. And I think that's why economists are out there, because obviously we get a lot of points of view on Twitter, and you sort of you read some, you think some make sense, others are all over the shop, but at the end of it comes back to what's actually playing out on the ground for us that makes a lot more sense than following the mainstream narratives and understanding how those sands are shifting and moving as we get live information on a weekly basis, because everything else in our view is lags by weeks if not months, but obviously we use that to play on when we're making offers on properties, or obviously, so we use it to our advantage. But look, having said that, Martin, what's happening in China? Last week we said that the enlistment or the participation age into the military or the reserves in China had gone up to from the bracket has now moved up to 18 to 60-year-olds. And, lo and behold, Martin, after that, America, look, I don't know how true this is, but I thought it was rather interesting. America's saying military jobs for seniors earn up to $50,000. I mean, seniors, I think from what I briefly read on there, they were talking about 50 years of age and up. So, I mean, depending on what you consider as a senior. some may consider being 45 senior. I don't know.
No, very interesting. Well, there is, rumour of war and talk of war all over the place at the moment, unfortunately. And one of the observations is that, they have to turn the throttle up to try and get more cannon fodder into the system to be able to actually support the war effort. So, no surprise really, but it is pretty horrific in terms of, if you think about it and what it might mean. And I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but I don't think it's good.
No, look, it isn't. But okay, how does that affect us? Again, it goes back to, I know you're leaving us, Martin. I'm sad to hear that. I'm saddened, but we're still going to be in contact with each other. We're still going to be doing it's going to be new. The new title is the International Monday Evening Rant.
Yeah, well, hopefully what we can do is I will still cover Australia, right? So I'll be in the UK, but I'm still going to cover Australia. But I also want to bring in a little bit of the UK flavour as well, because actually there are some really interesting comparisons we can make between the Australian markets and UK markets, and I think it'll be actually enrich the conversation even more. So as well as the WeChat chats from China, we'll be able to get the UK chats from the UK, right? I'm not sure what we'll call them, but I think it'll be quite interesting. So yeah, folks, just rest assured there might be a little bit of a hiatus for 2 or 3 weeks while I pack up the studio and move over to the UK, but we will be ranting.
Yeah, look, but as I say, some of the good folk are going. But look, the good thing is I know that you're not going for the wrong reasons. You're not trying to escape Australia, because I think you're of the opinion, like I am, that look, Australia is
it's a great country,
the world's greatest country, second to England, according to yourself.
Well, no, it's an interesting. Without going off piece too much, the question of why I'm going to the UK is complex, right? Because basically, as you know, Jill died last year, and I needed to move from here. This property is too much associated with Jill. So once I decided that I was going to sell the property, then the question was, well, where do I buy? And I genuinely was looking locally and around Australia, but I also then was following property in the UK, and property prices came back in the UK a little bit. But the particular property came up, which is one I'd looked at many years ago and thought, gee, if that ever came up, I'd be really interested to buy it, right? And blow me, it came up at a price which I thought was reasonable. And so that sort of triggered okay, so if I'm going to buy that property, I've got a lot of friends and family back in the UK. So it sort of started to build and make sense. So it's not a judgment for or against Australia, right? It's much more about my personal circumstances and trying to break out of this sort of gloomy loop that I've been in for the last 18 months. Because, grief's a funny thing. And grieving for, somebody that you've known for years and loved for years, it's a really weird process. But you have to break out of it. And I think my decision was, this is the way to break out of it. And by the way, the dogs are going too, so that was the most important thing, right?
Oh, look, that's good. Yeah, look, I understand that. We've shared that when we had lunch the other day, and it was great. You shared that, and the home that you're going to was just uncanny. Dusty's, in my opinion, it was a miniature version of the house that you're in now.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, it's got many of the same characteristics, but we'll have to shed a few things because it's a lot smaller. But nevertheless, it's good, and it's very close to an area of the country that I love. The fields are just down the road. It's National Trust protected, so that means they're not going to build on it. And lifestyle for where I am in my own journey of evolution, makes a lot of sense. But I will still be doing shows. Still will be covering Australia and the Australian markets, as well as the international and specifically the UK. But going on talking about just finance briefly, this is quite interesting, isn't it? With China now, they're going to overhaul their financial system. Guess what? Xi's going to get even more control.
Well, yeah, and this has a lot of people read that and go, oh yeah, typical, communist country, blah blah blah, this, that, the other, and so forth. But fundamentally, from our point of view, and from what the podcast is all about tonight, and our rant is all about, it's all about how could this possibly affect us? How is it? What's going to be the roll-on effect to our market here? Now, the WeChat chatters, obviously, they've been sharing with us, and two of the bigger groups that we share information with, or they share information with us in relation to migration, what the trends are in relation to the high net worth individuals that are wanting to come over. Well, guess what? What this has been doing over the last week or so there anyway, is really has encouraged a lot of high net worth individuals. Now, we know that the students are coming back, right? We know that there are systems in place to stop real high net worth individuals from taking money out of the country and so forth. But there is still a large group of high net worth individuals that, Martin, they've got PR, they've got permanent residency here in Australia, and part of the family are here. And they're just, this is for them, this is their opportunity. This is the reason to basically leave the country. So if they didn't have a reason before to want to leave the country, and when I say leave the country, we're talking about individuals that have got, hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're prepared to forego a large portion of that in order to, get a better life for the family, for the next generation, and also for themselves. So some are going to Canada, obviously, some are going to America, all over the world. But there is a contingency that will be coming to Australia. So to the point where, as much as you goodbye to a lot of high net worth families, it's a situation where they're running that run philosophy is being broadened not only to the students, the younger generation, but also to this high net worth individuals. They're going to come over for that reason that we talk about, that they feel that Australia is a safe country and they can grow the business, have a restart, put the money in. And these groups are already looking and have already bought properties within the value of anywhere between $5 to $15 million for waiting for the rest of the family to come over. So some of the family are here. They're already shopping. Two of our colleagues are assisting them with with some of the properties, because there's specific areas they need to live in. There's specific type of property that they want to live in, and that is what these policies in mainland China are creating. And again, for our viewers at the moment, when you've got low listings on market, where are things going to go, particularly where in the areas where these families will want to move into, because there's specific areas that they're going to move into that they gravitate towards.
Absolutely. And you actually put some words in Z's mouth, right? Which basically said, hey, all my rich, wealthy friends, for now, see you soon in Oz.
Yeah, hasta la vista to all my rich, wealthy friends for now. See you soon in Oz. I already have a down payment on Kirribilli House that Alvo is reletting for me. Run as far and as fast as you can, but you will realize I'm already there.
Excellent. That was very good. Very, very good. Now let's move on then to talk about if you don't succeed the first time, try again.
Well, that's it, Martin. That's it. This is it. This is this is where we go back to the beginning of the podcast. Is give me some of that shit that these politicians are making, because if you don't stuff it up the first time, have a second go, and you have to see if you can stuff it up well and truly. So there you go, Mike. I don't know what your interpretation of this is. Obviously it's not etched in stone because it's a promise. But when you start thinking about what is our mate Dom saying, he's really, as much as put under the plan, young home buyers will be able to continue avoid paying costly stamp duty on the first and second properties. So do they have to sell the first property in order to take advantage of this on the second property as well, or can they keep the first property? In other words, is he converting them from first-time buyers to investors? Is that the property ladder that is encouraging here? What's your interpretation of this?
Well, it's very unclear, because it could be because effectively the stamp duty alternative is really for first-time buyers, right, up to a certain point. But maybe this is to allow them to then trade on and continue that same process, possibly. Or when I first read it, I thought, hello, he's opening the door on investment properties as well, right? So that could be. I mean, but it's an election promise, so it doesn't need substance, right? It doesn't need to have defined content. It doesn't need to have clarity about what the hell it's about, right? It's just a feel-good little hook to get a few more people to vote for you. That's what this is about, right? And just
yeah. But who's he appealing to, really? Think about it. Like, this is what I was trying to. When I was reading this yesterday, I was thinking, well, who's he trying to appeal to? Well, what vote is he trying to gain here? Because is it is it the flippers vote? Because they're the ones that are making a mozza at the moment. Is it the vendors vote, because they're the ones that the properties that should be selling for, particularly in Winston Hills, they should be selling for a million 150 to 200 tops, have gone back up to 1,300,000 to 1,400,000, all because of the Pareto effect. I mean, who's he appealing to? And this is it is so convoluted. And then the flip side of this is obviously, well, how are the people that have only bought one property in their lifetime, is he slapping them in the face? And is he saying, well, you should have bought another one? What's he doing? I just don't get it. I really don't get it.
You've made a big assumption that there is rationality below the waterline, right? Maybe there isn't. Maybe this is just it's a bit like ScoMo, before the election before last, throwing out all these grenades to try and encourage people, first-time buyers. It wasn't really, they didn't expect to win the election, so they sort of threw all these promises out, and then blow me, they won, and then they had to work out a set of policies to try and match their promises, right? And Pareto also said, first home buyer choice, we're going to lift it to a house now up to $1.5 million, right? So we've actually extended it up as well. So we've extended this thing now. We've tried to embrace more people, maybe even property investors, maybe flippers. Folks, we're in it for you. Vote for me because I'll help you expand your property portfolio. And just remember, all the evidence is that the switch away from stamp duty adds precisely the same amount onto the price of the property. So you end up paying more on day one than you would have previously. So it's a zero-sum game. But of course, from a political perspective, they don't care about that. No. But there was another article floating around as well today saying that the renters were going to actually decide the next election. I sort of put my money on that for sure. They're going to have a huge say in this. But then again, we don't know what are the Labs promising. What are they apart from hanging on to the Albo's coattails and still banging on about the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of properties that they're going to build across Australia, and most of them will be in New South Wales. I don't know where they're going to build them, and they still haven't told us what type of properties they're going to build. But that's the only promise that's sort of coming out. But I don't know. It's just a wait and see. No, there'll be more coming out. We've got another 2 or 3 weeks of this stuff before we hit the. Is it 25th? I think one of those. Yeah. So plenty of time for them to spin up a few more yarns up the yard arm and try and get a few more people to vote for them. No depth, no substance to the promises, right? And then, of course, after the election, hang on, the budget's not quite what we thought. I won't be able to do that. We'll have to charge you higher taxes. Yeah, I can hear it now.
Yeah, well, isn't the super going down somewhere?
Particularly the more affluent super holders could well be having somebody reach in their back pocket and just take a little bit more out each month just to help the coffers. This whole thing is a bit ridiculous, right? Because the problem is that the focus on spending is not there, and they want to make promises around the election. There's no real justification for how they're actually going to save and how they're going to afford all these promises that they're making, But that's not what this election about. This election is about candy. Look at these bright, shiny things. You know, I've got more bright, shiny things than you, and my bright, shiny things are much more related to the property sector. So vote for me. That's basically what it is. Now, there's very little discussion about rental pressure. Neither side has a clear strategy with regard to the problem of unaffordable rents in New South Wales, and particularly in Sydney. That's a big black mark. That's a big shame. And in other policy areas too, they've been pretty silent. So they've picked off these little, what I call bell whistle or dog whistle ideas, right? Because they know that people will be sensitized to them and might react. I think it's more a sign of desperation than anything else. And I don't trust them. I don't believe it's going to make any difference. And at the end of the day, neither side of politics is explaining how they're going to afford it, other than we know that the Liberals are going to privatise more stuff. And that went well, didn't it, over the last 30 years?
Yeah, exactly. And again, they're forgetting about reality, as we said earlier on in the show. You got the NCC and BASIX just increasing the cost of construction and the red tape around renovations above $50,000. So things are going to get cheaper. So even if they do, say they promise you a million, that realistically they're not even going to be able to build. Well, they've told us they're not going to be able to build more than 30,000 or 60,000, whatever, and so forth. So it's just that diminishing effect, and we're meant to forget it. We're not a political podcast. We're not going to tell people who to vote for, what to vote. But really, it's. But
remember, folks, as Edwin keeps saying, they're two wings on the same bird, right? They're heading in the same direction.
In the same vulture, Martin.
Now let's move on then to talk about this here property, right? Because this is well, it's one fantastic story, but it's a bit scary, really.
Well, things are getting crazy and things are getting scary. But when you start looking at the markets within the markets, within a market in particular section or part of Sydney, or as you're saying in the South Coast, your ways, we start looking at some of the things. But this caught my attention. A number of things that came out of this particular tweet that I put out in the thread. If people want to get a full picture of more of a story on this, obviously I'll try to put as much as I can on Twitter so they can have a better understanding. Now, I tagged Victor Dominello and Dom Perrottet on this because Victor Dominello been Minister for and Dom Perrottet the Premier, and also New South Wales Fair Trading, because there are a lot of things at play here. So the background to this quickly is last year's sale. This property was offered to market last year. It got passed in at an auction at vendor's bid of $2.7 million in November last year. The highest bid was one of my clients at $2,425,000. Now, obviously, it didn't get sold. I share some of the conversation I've been having since then with locals in around the marketing campaign, the current marketing campaign. So, and this is one of the reasons why I tag Dominello, Perrottet, and Fair Trading, is because of the alleged underquoting. Now, I know, and I hold the receipts, the fact that the vendor, up until Saturday, the day of the auction, the vendor was expecting and was wanting $3 million and above. Now, the agent in the auction campaign, in the 3-week auction campaign, the agent was guiding $2.5 million. This is in the current campaign. And and up to a day before the auction, the guide was still 2.5. When I went to the auction, there would have been anywhere between 8 and 12 potential bidders from the bidding cards that I counted that people were holding. Only 3 people participated in the auction market. One that came in with the opening bid at 2.5, which was the guide, and then it was 2 WeChat chatters, or as I call them, 2 Chinese syndicates going toe to toe, and they took it up to a sale of 2,765,000 on the day. It's still below expectations. So obviously, there's a number of things that they were able to see that happened here. I was able to see there was a higher motivation for people to buy. There was less property on market than there was in November, so that obviously had an impact on the purchase price. We had the WeChat chatterers, or the Chinese syndicates, the local WeChat chatterers coming in, and we've been talking in our show that they were calling the bottom of the market in February, and they were going to start coming in strong. And this is not only although this is one example. There's many others around Sydney where the WeChat chatterers, not our WeChat chatterers, but WeChat chatterers have been bidding strong and buying property, because it was always their belief that the bottom of the market was impairing. So low stock volumes on market. WeChat chatterers are coming in. They were able to achieve a higher result than what they did in the auction of November 2022. So they're the observations. The other one is that not only this one, but in one of the other properties around in Kellerville that they were being conducted simultaneously around the same time. So I couldn't be at both, but one of our associates was at the other property that I also put up on Twitter. I can tell you, Martin, that on the one that I was observing and on the one that our other associate was observing, the wife effect was very strong, very, very strong. I mean, it was really, that emotion was there. But you can also appreciate why the wife effect has become very strong, because a lot of the housewives that the husbands have taken the reins of the financial decisions, basically said, we can't wait any longer. If we continue to wait, you're going to be in the doghouse. Unless you give me a property. Now, people may have jumped in prematurely because of that, but it is very strong. There is a very emotional, how can I put it, a factor that's at play as well here. And this is, and I think this is brought about because there's less and less properties on market, which is something that we're going to talk about later on as well.
Yep.
As to those indicators that we are seeing, particularly if the properties are well presented, Martin, particularly if properties are of a caliber, of a high standard, and they stand out in certain suburbs, they are being sought after, and they are achieving high prices in many parts of Sydney. Not all parts, but in many parts of Sydney.
Absolutely, but the moral here again is this question of underquoting, and so the agent puts a stake in the ground quite a long way below where the vendor is actually expecting, right? And the agent is hoping that somehow he can climb people up towards where the vendor wants to go. That's the mechanism we're talking about here. But it is fraught with deception, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is, and in my opinion, that has a negative effect on the market that many of the participants are also wary of. In other words, in a market that people can see that it's either going backwards or there's a lot of commentary about the market going backwards or going down, prices going down. So there's a lot of speak. The narrative is very strong around those points. So when you start underquoting, well, the loser in all this is really is the vendor. Now, one of my colleagues said, "Well, how do you know that? How do you know that one of the parties was would have paid more for the property? Then how do you know? Look, you can just tell. You can tell. I've been doing this shit for a long time. You could tell that there was easy. The young couple, the way they were dressed, the way they were bidding, with confidence. They were outplaying an older couple, an older WeChat chatterer, but it was really, really interesting. It got to the point where this young gun did not want to lose face in front of the older generation. So there was still another, in my view, there would have been another 100,000 in it for the vendor, but for the tactic or the strategy that the agents are taking. So it's fraught with danger. I can see, I can see the vendors will be potentially taking a lot of agents to task, particularly if the now. I don't have the receipt on this, but I can assure you that the agent would not have told the vendor that he could not achieve the $3 million mark for these vendors to give him the listing. I know that for a fact because I know that 2 other agents went in there to also try and get the listing, and that's what the vendor said. We will not accept anything lower than 3. But then the pressure gets put on the day to the vendor, because psychologically people are saying, well, okay, if some of the psychology playing out is you've got this older generation WeChat chatter or newer generation WeChat chatter are going toe to toe. None of them want to lose face, but sooner or later, the actual wife of the older chatterer said, "That's it, enough, no more." She was the one that voiced it out and said, "No more, no more, no more, no more." But and whereas the other one, he was confident. He would have gone. He would have gone for as he did not want to lose face. He did not want to be the one losing that battle. And you could tell he had many more. He had a lot more juice in that tank. He could have gone. Could have gone very close to the 3 million if you had to. But on the other hand, if that older gentleman wasn't there, and the only other bid was 2.5, you got to ask yourself the question. Now he came in at 2.55 as the second bid. It would have stalled there. That's it. That's where it would have stalled. Now it would have got passed in. There would have been negotiations after, and then because he would be saying to himself, why would I want to go out and pay a hell of a lot more, and in a way lose face also amongst a greater group of people, more or less being thought of a fool paying more than what he actually bid on the day. Maybe he might have had another 100 there on the day. So all these things, these underquoting is very fraught with danger for a lot of the selling agents, and they're going to get themselves in a lot of strife.
Absolutely right. Well, interesting times. I think we're going to see more of this ahead. But let's move on to the numbers, because the numbers are also, we know what the numbers are doing, really.
The numbers are all appear to me at the moment is stagnant.
Yeah.
As I've been saying, we should have been getting no less than 700, 750. Some of the previous weeks, I was expecting to see at least 1,000 properties on market, which is not a lot of homes on market in the Sydney metropolitan area, and they've just pretty much come to a standstill.
Yeah.
There's not much difference between the beginning of the month till now.
Well, let's look. 13th of February, 16,627. We go to the 20th, 16,537. If we go to the 27th, 16,552. So pretty much stagnation territory.
Yeah, and we've got 7,200 or 7,300 property homes for sale on market in Sydney.
Mm.
The 2034 postcode has 10,000 properties across the 4 suburbs, and that's and there's 636 suburbs in the Sydney metropolitan area. So what does that tell you? I'll tell you what it does tell me, Martin, is that the real estate industry, the salespeople themselves are in a lot of strife. Yep. These numbers have got to tick up if they want to keep a job. I still hold very strongly to the point that we've just gone back to 2019 where sales were very, very low as well, and the industry was on its knees, and I can see them going back to being on their knees, on its knees again. That's all that tells me, which is a totally different story to what's happening in Melbourne. Melbourne are going gangbusters. The numbers are just going north, and they keep on going north. There's no stopping it. It's again, I don't really study that market. I'm just interested in the numbers for our podcast, and but it's everybody seems to want to get out of Melbourne. But as we said before, one of the main reasons that I believe this is happening is because there's a lot of investors from interstate that bought into new subdivisions, new homes in the fringes, and that you can't do. You don't have that mindset, or you don't have the demographics there to basically break the rental ceiling, and they're capped, and they can't get the return. And as interest rates keep on climbing, these investors are just got to fork out of their own pocket to make up the balance.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that particularly in Melbourne, because the Greater Melbourne gross and net yields are the worst in the country. They have been consistently, and there's no improvement with the higher interest rates. Although rates of rent are going up, the interest rates are stealing money away. So more investors are getting stranded with properties they can't make any economic sense from. And of course, values are not growing; they're actually going sideways or down. So a lot of investors saying, "Oh, time to hop to the exit." So one of the reasons why I think listings in Melbourne in particular are somewhat higher. And as for Brisbane, well, 4846 on the 20th and 4828 on the 27th. Don't blink, you might miss something.
No, well, that's the thing. That's really steady as she goes, right?
Yeah.
So
very, very little there in terms of the momentum. And if we look at the underquoting, the underquoting index, it's sort of meandering along, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Look, it's a lot lower than obviously than same time last year, right?
Yeah.
But one of the interesting points that we want to look at is I've been taking snapshots of the open for inspection numbers, Matt. That's something that we said we were going to track. The Melbourne region, you've got 8,402 properties on the market for rent, and in the Sydney region, as we speak, you've got 8,455, which is rather industry. The split in Sydney is almost 50-50. The split in Melbourne, there's more houses for rent than there are apartments, and that's a reflection of on the split of for sale. There's a hell of a lot more homes for sale as well as there are apartments. But look, I don't have the migration figures in terms of interstate migration figures, but I would be safe to say that there's more people leaving Melbourne than there are going into Melbourne. There's a hell of a lot more people coming into New South Wales or Sydney than Melbourne. Hence the reason why our rental market is so tight.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a factor. There were some ABS stats came out a few weeks ago, and that showed that same trend. So I guess you put an interesting little tweet up. Low on market numbers. By lower open market numbers, we had 3 weeks here. Not a good sign for Sydney property. Melbourne was low as well. Is something on this Saturday? Open inspections, 18,088 in New South Wales.
Yeah, which are average. Yeah. November or so before last year, before the holidays, we were averaging close, 22 and a half, close to 23,000 open for inspection homes, in the Sydney, under these figures here. Currently, we're averaging just, in the high 17,000s. Now, Melbourne last week the previous week had a hell of a lot more open for inspections than Sydney, but this Saturday, for some reason, probably the parades or things going on there, they only had 16,786 open for inspections in Melbourne, which is a little bit lower than Sydney. But I think that's going to pick up this week. Again, to me, if you recall, we said we're going to monitor this a couple of weeks ago. We said we're going to keep a very, very close eye, because to me, this is a sign of fear and retreat from vendors, Martin. So if they haven't sold their homes, they're not really, it's really by appointment. and only get those serious buyers that are interested in my home, because sooner than later vendors get sick and tired of being having open for inspections Saturday in, Saturday out,
Yep.
week in, week out, and not only that, but also on a during the week as well. So that they get tired, and this is where basically the second agent that lists a property, or the third agent that lists a property for sale, is usually the champion, because the vendors are so battered that they will accept a much lower price.
Absolutely. And you also published this little bit of information: the popular suburbs auctions on the 4th of March, St Ives, Lane Cove and Manly headed the top of the list. And it's interesting, Popular. That's an interesting way to spell popular, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, when you got Chinese bots trolling the domain, that's what you
get. Exactly right. But it is quite interesting. So the distribution fascinates me, right? So you can see that in some suburbs there's almost 2 or 3 if you're lucky. Others quite a lot more, but a small number of postcodes with considerable numbers. St Ives and Lane Cove right at the top there. So fascinating.
They're your typical suburbs, though. If you notice the top there in the top 3 rows, right? They're your suburbs where you expect auctions.
Yeah.
Where it's expected, and you're expecting those areas to really and to have a lot of auctions. Well, it's not a lot of auctions, but that they are the forerunners. They're used to auction campaigns. But if you notice, the ones that are highlighted, where we said we're going to keep an eye on the outer west and northwest, southwest regions, where they're starting to come up in their numbers. So that's moving forward. We'll see how that pans out. Now, last week, 2 weeks ago, in Seven Hills, there were 4 homes on market. That's just over 2 weeks ago, right? There was 4 homes. One was under offer, I believe it's sold. So, but call it 4 homes on market. I think currently, as we speak, just before the weekend, 17 homes came on market in Seven Hills, and it just literally happened overnight. So some of the old listings came back on, but there was a hell of a lot of new listings that came on in Seven Hills. Now, Seven Hills is an interesting suburb that when you start looking at the demographics and people moving into that area for particular school catchment areas, and it's for some parts you're achieving 10-15% above Blacktown values, and what separates Seven Hills and Blacktown is Blacktown Road. You could be $100,000 difference for the same house on either side of Blacktown Road. So these sort of things, and that was of interest to me, and to obviously Blacktown. I've been following Blacktown, the Blacktown LGA for many years, because of what how things play out in many aspects. Blacktown in the past has been the canary in the coal mine. It is. In a lot of these areas, I'm starting to see, trying to get an idea now as to what's happening in Seven Hills. Is it more your downsizers, your retirees, who's selling, in your black towns and that. And if it goes to auction, typically you'd find that in the West, it's usually investors that want out quickly. But that's again where I highlighted those areas, because we did allude to them a couple of weeks ago, to see how quickly those auction numbers come on. Now, as you and I spoke about many times, and I've been very vocal even on Twitter, I don't care much for the auction numbers per se, or the percentages that they talk about, I should say. I care more about the actual numbers that come on market, because that is reflective of vendors' confidence, market confidence. It's the numbers that interest me more than the percentages that many talk about. You can talk about 74%, but if there was only 10 properties in the pool, and 7 sold, whatever, what happened to the other three is what I'm just interested in numbers. Now, you might say, well, that's a pretty high average, but if retrospectively you used to get 30 listings or 30 properties go for sale, well, it just tells me that they 7 vendors met the market on the day, but what happened to the other 23 properties that should have been on the market for the same time, the same season?
Yes, a few fell off the back of the lorry. Well, funny that. Okay, and just before we close out, a quick tip for both buyers and sellers.
Yeah, and this is quick. Look, obviously, there's a lot more science to this, but this is very brief and quick. Look, for sellers, what we are seeing out there, what we're experiencing out there in the commentary, because from time to time we do help. We do assist sellers in helping them through the process of selling and identifying agents, and we help them select the agent, select the marketing campaign, and help them tidy up the property and prepare the property for sale. And it's very important for sellers, if our followers are in looking at selling, it's very important from the beginning that you have choose the right campaign, that you prepare it right. So from the marketing, from presentation, the marketing, the agent, and if you're going to go through an auction campaign, the auctioneer is very, very, very important on the day. Now, here's a tip from if you do go to an auction campaign. If the auctioneer does not want to come and see your home or your property that you're selling, the day or days before the day of the auction, they just want to inspect the home on the day, well, he's the wrong auctioneer for you. Don't waste your time with them, because they can't absorb everything about the home. They try to you see them flounder through the preamble when they're at the auction, because they're usually conducting anywhere between 6 to 10 auctions on the day. Tom Panels talks about sometimes that it does 12, 15 auctions on the day. I keep on asking him over and over again in our various chats. I'm saying, well, how many of those did you visit before the day of the auction? Because that stumps them. That's what auctioneers used to do in the past. They used to visit the home to get themselves acquainted with the home before they sell. So if the auctioneer is not going to do that, well, then they're not worth the pinch of salt. So get rid of them and find somebody that will. There's a tip for you there. In terms of buyers, well, then do the opposite. Look for those marketing campaigns that show you dreadful photos. The agents come across as being lazy. The homes are presented badly. You drive up. You go up to you pull up to the front of the house, and the lawns are foot long, and bushes are overgrown. Everything. Well, what? There might be a gem behind those bushes, but I understand also, if you follow those rather than the new and shiny ones first, follow those, you might have something that's solid with strong bones that you could then over time transform it into your domain, your palace, your own look and feel, your own something that you'll consider dealing. But that's very important, that if you're a seller, and also if you're a buyer, you just do the opposite.
Absolutely. And what I always say to people is, don't get caught up with the sort of the initial bling first impression, right? Look beyond it, right? Look for those things. And quite often there are properties around that don't present quite as well, but as you say, do have very good features and benefits, and actually may have a price differential to match. And what you quite often say, and I want to underscore it again, is when you buy, think about buying with some upside. And I think in the current environment, that's the most critical thing of all.
And if you're going to buy, make sure you sell first.
That's also a very good piece of advice at the moment. Yes, mentioning no names. Edwin, thank you very much indeed for your time today. As always, very good to chat with you. And we will do it again next week. And that will be our last rant before I exit stage left to the UK. But we probably do a few more over the next few weeks, but it'll just be a little less regulated and regular. So, but folks, be absolutely assured we will continue to rant.
Yeah, that's just the beginning of the International Monday Evening Rant, mate. Can't wait.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Edwin. See you later. Thanks very much. Cheers.